The Galactic Space Council floated high above the swirling storms of Zinther, a glittering ring of silver and light spinning slowly in the dark. It was a place of perfect order, where silence was respected, logic was law, and emotions were seen as weakness. Delegates from dozens of alien species sat in their glowing seats, tall, graceful beings made of crystal, floating jellyfish like minds, insect warriors with cold, many-eyed stares. They spoke in calm tones, their voices smooth like water over stone. Peace, balance, progress. These were their words, and then the humans arrived. They didn't float, they didn't glow. They walked 2 feet on the floor, heads high, hearts loud. Ambassador Kora Ristova stepped forward, dressed in a simple black suit, her dark hair pulled back, her eyes sharp like glass. She didn't shine, she didn't hum with energy, but she burned quietly, deeply, like a fire hidden under ash. Behind her stood 2 guards, not robots, not armored giants, just men. One was young, with restless hands and a nervous smile. The other was older, scarred, silent, human, real. A murmur passed through the hall. They moved so heavy, no telepathy, no grace. How did they even get here? High Speaker Velen, a tall being of living crystal, raised a long, glowing hand. Human delegation. You have requested to speak on matters of galactic defense. State your purpose. Kora didn't flinch. We've built 3 new warships. They're ready. We want them added to the defense fleet. A ripple of disbelief. Then, laughter. Counselor Murdoch, a krill with clicking mandibles and 8 arms, leaned forward. Warships. You still use fire and metal to fly, do you not? Last year, your shuttle exploded during docking, and now you claim to have warships. More. Laughter. Soft. Cold. Kora didn't blink. Our ships run on dark matter. Silence. Then louder laughter. Dark matter. Velen said, his voice echoing like wind through stone. It cannot be touched. It cannot be seen. It is the emptiness. Between stars. You might as well say your ships are powered by dreams. Kora didn't smile. She didn't get angry. She just looked at them, really looked, like she was seeing not their beauty or power, but their fear. We used to think fire was magic, she said. Then we learned to hold it. We thought the sky was the end of the world. Then we flew. You've been safe for so long. You forgot what it means to fight for something. A pause. The room felt heavier. We didn't come here to impress you, she said. We came because the universe isn't peaceful. And when danger comes, and it will, you'll wish you hadn't laughed. Murdoch laughed again. Show us then. Prove it. Kora nodded. In 3 days. At the fleet review, you'll see. As she turned to leave, the whispers followed. They're insane. They'll humiliate themselves. They have no idea how the galaxy works. But Kora walked straight, her boots loud on the smooth floor. Not proud, not angry, determined. Back on the human shuttle, the young guard jocks finally spoke. They're going to eat us alive out there, ma'am. Kora sat down, closed her eyes. Let them think that. The older man, Elias, handed her a small photo, a little girl, smiling in a field of red flowers. Earth, home. They don't know us, Kora whispered. They don't know what we've survived, what we've lost, what we'll do to protect what's ours. She opened her eyes. They were wet, but strong. We don't need their approval. We just need a chance. Outside the window, the stars burned cold and far. But inside the shuttle, something warm pulsed. Not a weapon, not a machine. Hope. And it was louder than any laughter. Asterisk, beneath. The frozen crust of Europa, where no sunlight ever reached, and the silence was so deep it pressed against the ears. There was a place the galaxy didn't know about. It was called Project A. ETERN. No stars lit its halls. No alien symbols marked its walls. Just steel, concrete, and the low steady hum of machines fighting the impossible. This was where humanity had been working, Not for glory, not for praise, but for survival, and at the heart of it all, floating in a web of blue magnetic light, was the dark core. It looked like nothing, a small sphere of pure black, no bigger than a child's ball, but it pulled, not just on the air, not just on metal, on space itself. It bent the light around it, made time stumble. This was dark matter, not theory, not dream, real, and it was alive with power. Dr. Elias Vance stood before it, his face pale in the dim glow. He was not tall, not loud, just a man with tired eyes and hands that never stopped moving. Once, he had watched Earth's last fusion plant fail during the Great Blackout. He had held a child in his arms as the lights went out forever. That night, he swore, never again. Now, he had kept that promise. "It's stable," he whispered, reading the numbers on the screen. 72 hours and counting. No decay, no surge. It's listening. Beside him, Engineer Jin Park wiped sweat from his forehead. He was young, too young, some said, to carry the weight of this. But his mind moved faster than light. He had built the resonance chamber with scrap parts, stolen codes, and sleepless nights. "We did it, Doc," Jin said, voice shaking. "We tamed the void." Elias didn't smile. He just placed a hand on the glass. "We didn't tame it. We understood it. That's what humans do. When the universe says no, we ask why not." In the next room, a hologram spun, a warship, sleek and black, with no wings, no engines, no lights. Just smooth, silent darkness. ISS Prometheus. Jin stared at it like it was a ghost. It doesn't fly. It appears. 1 second near Mars. The next, right on top of you. No trail, no warning. Like magic. Not magic, Elias said. Science. Human science. We don't have millions of years of evolution. We don't grow our ships from crystals or grow brains in vats. We think. We fail. We try again. And when everyone says it's impossible, we do it anyway. A young technician ran in, eyes wide. The council just responded. They said our warships are not approved for the fleet review. They called them fantasy constructs. Jin laughed, loud, sharp, full of fire. Let them call us dreamers. We'll show them nightmares. But Elias didn't laugh. He walked to a small locker, opened it, and pulled out a faded photo. A city in ruins, smoke in the sky, a child standing in the rubble, holding a broken toy. "This," he said quietly, "is why we can't fail." That was New Shanghai. After the Solar War. No power, no food, no hope, and still, we rebuilt, brick by brick, dream by dream. He looked at the team, tired, hungry, eyes full of fear and fire. They laugh because we're different, because we feel too much, because we cry when we lose, and scream when we fight, and love too hard to ever give up. They think that makes us weak. He turned to the dark core, glowing like a heartbeat in the dark. It makes us stronger. That night, Jin sat alone, staring at the ship's design. He thought of his mother, who had taught him to read using old Earth books. One day, she had said, humans will speak to the stars. Now, he was building the voice, and deep below the ice. The core pulsed, slow, steady, like a heart waking up after 1 billion years of sleep. The galaxy didn't know it yet, but something new had entered the universe. Not just a weapon, not just a ship, a promise. 3 days passed like a slow breath held in the dark. The fleet review was set to begin in orbit around Zinther, a grand show of unity, power, and peace. Ships from across the galaxy had gathered, the Veils shimmering light, the krill-spiked war spiders, the Navith living coral cruisers that pulsed with oceanic rhythm. They moved in perfect formation, silent and graceful, like dancers in a dream. No smoke, no noise, no mistakes. High Speaker Velen stood on the bridge of the Eternus Guardian, the Council's flagship, watching with calm pride. "This," he said, "is order. This is evolution." Counselor Murdoch clicked his mandibles. "And where are the humans?" "Still fixing their engines, no doubt." A soft chime. A sensor alert. Then another, and another. Across the fleet, alarms. Blinked, not loud, not urgent, but impossible. "3 unknown signatures," whispered a Veil officer. "They just appeared. No approach, no energy spike, no warp trail." On the main view screen, 3 shapes hung in space, black dot still, perfectly silent, no wings, no lights, no movement. Just there, as if they had always been, hidden in the shadows between stars, the ISS Prometheus, the ISS Icarus, the ISS Titan. JAX. Now, on the bridge of the Prometheus, gripped his seat, heart pounding. "They can't even see how we got here," he muttered. "We didn't fly. We stepped." Admiral Kora Rostova stood at the front, calm as stone. Her eyes were on the council ship. She remembered the laughter, the smirks, the way they looked at her like she was a child playing with toys. Now, she didn't speak. She just opened a channel. "This is Admiral Kora Rostova, of Earth Defense Command. We are here for the fleet review, requesting permission to demonstrate." The response came fast, sharp, angry. "Human vessel, you are not cleared for armed presence. You are in violation of Council Law 7 Alpha. Power down and await inspection." Kora didn't blink. "We didn't come to ask permission. We came to show you what humanity does when the universe says no." She turned to Jin, who sat at the science station, fingers flying. "Time to wake them up." Jin grinned, with pleasure. The Prometheus moved. Not with a burst of fire. Not with a roar. It blinked, 1 second. Near Mars, the next, floating right beside the Eternus Guardian. So close its shadow fell across the council ship's bridge. No sound. No flash. No warning. Just presence. Inside the council chamber, Velen stumbled back. "Impossible. No ship can move like that. It defies physics." Murdoch's mandibles froze. It didn't accelerate. It didn't travel. It just was. And then wasn't. And then was again. Across the fleet, every ship froze. No one fired. No one spoke. They just stared. On the Prometheus, Elias watched the sensors. "They're scared," he said softly. "Not of the ship. Of what it means. That we're not playing by their rules." Kora stepped forward. "Now, show them power." The Prometheus fired. Not a laser. Not a missile. A pulse. Silent. Invisible. That twisted space itself. 10 kilometers away. A dead asteroid, left over from an ancient collision, wrinkled, like paper, in fire. Then collapsed into a tiny, dark point. A micro-black hole, and vanished. No explosion. No light. Just gone. On the council ship. Silence turned to panic. "That wasn't destruction," whispered a Navid scientist. "That was editing reality." Jin leaned back, breathless. "We don't fight with weapons. We fight with ideas." Then the Icarus moved. It didn't fly around a Krill battleship. It phased through it, appearing on the other side. Weapons. Locked. Red targeting beams painting the enemy's core. No damage. No threat. Just a message. "We could have killed you. We didn't." And the Titan. It activated its shield, a bubble of warped time. A test plasma bolt, fired in fear, slowed as it entered, stretching into a glowing ribbon, then fading like smoke. "Time. Dilation," Elias said, smiling. "We don't just bend space, we bend time." On the bridge, Kora felt it. Not pride, not anger, but something deeper. Purpose. The comms crackled. Velen's voice, shaky now. What are you?" Kora leaned into the mic. "We're the species that was told we'd never leave our planet. We were told fire was too dangerous, the sky too high. The stars too far. We lost cities. We lost wars. We lost everything. And still we kept going. We don't have perfect bodies. We don't live for 1,000 years. We break. We bleed. We cry. But we never stop trying. And now... She looked at the 3 warships, floating like shadows in the light of 1,000 stars. The silence that followed was deeper than space. No ship moved. No voice spoke. The great fleet of the Galactic Council hung frozen, not by weapons, not by force, but by shock. The humans hadn't just arrived. They had rewritten the rules, and now they would prove it. Admiral Kora Rostova stood tall on the bridge of the ISS Prometheus, her hands behind her back, her voice calm but sharp as a blade. "This is not a threat," she said over the open channel. "This is a demonstration. Watch closely, because what you're about to see changes everything." The first test began. The Prometheus didn't move forward. It didn't turn. It simply was not where it had been. One moment, it floated, near the edge of the formation. The next, it hung directly above the Council flagship, casting a long, silent shadow across the glass dome of the command deck. Inside, High Speaker Velen staggered. It didn't move. There was no acceleration, no energy trail. How human. "Ships do not obey the old laws," Kora said. "They ride the folds in space. We don't travel from point A to B. We connect them." A murmur ran through the fleet. Fear, wonder, disbelief. Then came the second test. Jin Park, grinning like a boy with a secret, tapped a command into his console, activating graviton pulse. The Icarus turned slowly, its smooth black hull drinking the starlight. A single red light blinked once, then vanished. No sound, no flash. But far out in the void, a dead moon, small, lifeless, forgotten, twisted, like clay in an invisible hand. It bent. Cracks split its surface. Then, in one silent moment, it collapsed inward, crushed by a force that came from nowhere, and disappeared into a tiny point of darkness, a black hole. Then silence. The sensors screamed. "That wasn't a weapon," a Veil scientist cried. "That was gravity manipulation. They created a singularity with thought." Kora didn't react. She just said, "We don't shoot bullets. We change the rules of the battlefield." Then came the third test. The ISS Titan drifted forward, slow, calm, like a shadow walking. A Krill battlecruiser, still tense, fired a warning shot, a bolt of blue plasma, fast and deadly. It never reached its target. The moment it touched an invisible bubble around the Titan, time slowed. The bolt stretched, glowing like a ribbon, moving slower and slower until it faded like smoke and wind. "Time dilation field," Elias said from the science deck, voice full of quiet pride. "We bend time around us. Attacks don't just bounce off. They tire out." On the bridge, jocks laughed. "They shot at us, and we made them wait." Across the fleet, the truth began to sink in. These were not ships. They were ideas made real, and the humans, the loud, emotional, illogical species, had built them. Mr. R single quotes, tech. The Krill counselor stared at the screen, his 8 arms trembling. This level of technology, it should take millions of years. They had fusion engines a decade ago. Velen's voice was small. They didn't climb the ladder of evolution. They built their own. But Kora wasn't done. "Final test," she said. The Prometheus, Icarus, and Titan moved, not in formation, not in silence. They danced. One moment they were spread across the sky. The next, they blinked, swapping positions, appearing and vanishing, moving so fast, they left after midget. They surrounded a derelict warship, a relic from an ancient war, and in perfect sync. Fire. Not to destroy, to transform. Gravity twisted, space folded. The old ship was lifted, bent, reshaped. Its metal reformed into a perfect sphere, floating like a new moon. Then, with a final pulse, it vanished, not exploded, not broken, but unmade, erased from existence. The silence that followed was sacred. No one spoke, no one breathed. Then a single voice, from the Navith flagship, soft and trembling. They don't just fight war, they redefine it. Elias watched the stars, his heart full. We didn't do this for power, he whispered. We did it because we had to, because we've seen darkness, because we remember what it's like to be weak. Jox looked at the alien fleet, now silent, humbled. They laughed at us, he said. Now they're just quiet. Cora stepped to the front of the bridge, her eyes on the council ship. This is not the end, she said, voice strong. This is the beginning. The galaxy thinks peace means no war. We know better. Peace means being strong enough to protect it. She closed the channel, and in the endless dark, 3 human warships floated, not as threats, not as conquerors, but as guardians, and for the first time in history, the stars felt a little less cold, because humanity had arrived, not with noise, not with rage, but with proof, and the proof was simple. ESCE didn't last. It never does. Just as the last echo of the human demonstration faded into the stars, the sensor screamed, a warning, sharp, final. Unknown fleet emerging from the Ord cloud. A veil, officer cried. Massive signatures. No identification, no comes. On the bridge of the ISS Prometheus, Cora Rostova turned slowly from the window. The calm in her eyes vanished, replaced by something hard, deep, and ancient. Show me. The view screen flickered and then they appeared. Not one ship, not 10 hundreds. Long jagged vessels, black as burnt bone, shaped like broken teeth. They didn't fly. They crawled through space, silent and wrong, leaving trails of twisted light behind them. No banners, no signals, just movement, cold, purposeful, hungry. The wrecks, whispered Elias, staring at the data. They were wiped out 1,000 years ago, or so we thought. Jox's hands flew over the console. They're using quantum disruption weapons. One shot and a ship just stops existing, as if to prove it. A Krill scout vessel fired a warning pulse. The Vrax ship nearest it didn't dodge. It didn't shield. It simply fired a beam of dark purple light that didn't burn, didn't explode. It unmade. The Krill ship blinked, then was gone. Not destroyed. Not in pieces, erased, like it had never been. A gasp ran through the fleet, then panic, fall back. Velen's voice cracked over the emergency channel. All ships, retreat to Eterna's shield perimeter. This is not a drill. The grand formation broke. Ships turned, engines flaring, fleeing in every direction. The graceful dance of peace became a scramble for survival. The Council's perfect order shattered in seconds, but not the humans. On the Prometheus, alarms flashed red. Shields up. Prepare for combat. Cora ordered. Voice like steel. JX. Swallowed hard. They're fast. Too fast. And their weapons. We don't even know how they work. Elias stared at the data, mind racing. They don't attack matter. They attack existence. They unravel atoms, break the rules. Cora didn't flinch. Good, because we like breaking rules. She stood tall, eyes locked on the enemy. They think they're unstoppable. They think silence and fear are power. But they've never fought a species that refuses to disappear. Back on Earth, a child looked up at the night sky. Unaware, in a ruined city on Mars, an old veteran lit a candle on a frozen moon. A scientist whispered a prayer. All over human space, people felt it, not fear, but something deeper. We are not alone, and we are not afraid. On the Titan, Jin activated the dark core. The ship hummed low, deep, like a heartbeat waking. We can't beat them with force. he said. But we can beat them with surprise. Elias nodded. They expect logic, order, predictability. We give them humanity. Cora opened the fleet-wide channel. All human ships execute Operation Phoenix. No mercy, no hesitation. We protect everyone. The Prometheus turned. Not away, not to hide, toward the enemy. And as the other ships fled, the 3 black warships blipped, vanishing from sight. Reappearing closer to the Vrax fleet. No fanfare, no warning, just will. JAX took a breath. They wanted a perfect war. We're giving them a storm. The first Vrax command ship didn't see it coming. One moment, it loomed over the battlefield. The next, the Icarus appeared inside its shadow, fired a graviton pulse, and twisted. Space around it. The ship folded, not exploded. Not broken, but crushed into a tiny, dark sphere. Floating like a dead star. Gone, the second Vrax ship turned its weapon, a beam of purple. Fire screaming across space. The Titan didn't dodge it. Raised its time shield. The beam slowed, stretched, faded, and in that moment of delay, the Prometheus blipped behind it, fired, and erased its core. 2 down. Hundreds to go. On the bridge, Cora didn't cheer. She didn't smile. She just said, let them learn. Let them finally understand. She looked at the stars, at the fleeing alien ships, at the silent council, watching in awe. This is why we built these ships. Not for pride, not for war, but for this moment, when the darkness comes, and someone has to stand. Elias placed a hand on the console, feeling the dark core pulse beneath. We are not the strongest, he whispered. We are not the oldest. We are not the smartest. He looked up. The war had no sound, no roaring engines, no screaming metal, no explosions lighting the void, just silence and death. The Vrax moved like shadows, their jagged ships cutting through space, erasing alliance. Vessels with cold precision. One by one, the great warships of the galaxy vanished, not blown apart, but unmade, wiped from existence, as if they had never been. Panic spread. The Council fleet scattered, fleeing behind the energy shield of Orbital Eternus, their perfect order broken, their confidence shattered. On the command deck, Velen gripped his seat, voice trembling. We have no defense, no counter. They are beyond us. Murdoch clicked in fear. They do not fight like warriors. They fight like judgment. But in the dark between the stars, 3 ships did not run. They hunted. The ISS Prometheus, Icarus, and Titan danced through the battlefield, not flying, not dodging, blinking from one point to another, appearing and vanishing like ghosts. No warning, no pattern, no rules, just war. Inside the Prometheus, Jox's hands flew over the controls, eyes locked on the targeting screen. They're fast, but they're predictable. They move in straight lines. They aim. They fire. They don't adapt. Cora stood behind him, calm, focused. That's their weakness. They think like machines. We think like humans. She turned to Elias. How do we break them? Elias studied the data, mind racing. Their weapons unravel matter by disrupting atomic bonds. But our dark matter cores, they bend space-time. If we create a resonance pulse, just right, we can jam their frequency. Jox grinned. You mean, make them miss? Not miss, Elias said. Stumble. Cora nodded. Do it. On the Titan, Jin activated the resonance field. A low hum filled the ship, not loud, but deep, like the universe itself was vibrating. Then, the first test, a Vrax destroyer locked onto a fleeing Navith cruiser, its weapon charging with that terrible purple glow. The Titan fired, not a weapon, a wave, silent, invisible. The moment it passed through the Vrax ship, its weapon flickered. The beam fired, but went wide, missing by kilometers. It had missed. Gotcha, Jin whispered. Across the fleet, hope flickered like a dying star, but alive. Then the Icarus struck. It didn't attack from the front. It didn't attack from the side. It phased through the edge of a moon's shadow, slipped into the blind spot of a Vrax command ship, and fired a micro-singularity into its core. The enemy ship folded inward, collapsing into a tiny black dot, then vanished, gone. No explosion, no debris, just absence. But the humans didn't stop. The Prometheus targeted the lead Vrax vessel, a monstrous ship shaped like a broken crown, twice the size of any other. Cora leaned forward. That's their flagship. If we take it down, the rest might retreat. Jox swallowed. It's got a shield, not energy. Something weirder, like it's not fully here. Elias frowned. It's using quantum phasing. It exists in multiple moments at once. That's why weapons pass through it. Cora didn't blink. Then we don't fight it in time. We fight it outside time. She turned to the crew. Prepare the chronoshare pulse. Full power. Jox's eyes widened. That's untested. We could tear the ship apart. We could, Cora said. Or we could win. She looked at the dark core, pulsing like a heart in the belly of the ship. We didn't come this far to play it safe. On the bridge, every human held their breath. Elias placed a hand on the console. For Earth. For Mars. For every child who ever looked up and wondered if we were alone. Jin whispered. For everyone we've lost. Cora gave the order. Fire. The Prometheus shuddered. The dark core screamed. Not in sound, but in pressure, in light, in wrongness. Space around the ship rippled, like water struck by stone. Then a pulse. Not light, not fire, a tear in time. It crossed the void in an instant, and struck the Vrax flagship for a single, impossible moment. The ship flickered, appearing in 5 places at once, then 3, then 1. Its quantum shield failed, and in that split second, Cora fired. The graviton lance struck true. The flagship twisted, metal folding, decks collapsing, systems failing, and then, like a dying beast, it imploded, vanishing into a cloud of dust and silence. The battlefield froze. No one moved. No one spoke. Then a ripple. The remaining Vrax ships hesitated. Then, one by one, they turned. Not to fight, not to flee. They withdrew, vanishing into the dark, leaving only wreckage behind. Victory on the Prometheus. The crew didn't cheer. They breathed. They looked at each other, and for the first time, they knew they weren't just soldiers. They weren't just defenders. They were something new, something the galaxy had never seen. Elias looked out at the stars, where the last Vrax ship disappeared. They ran, he said softly. Cora stood tall, her eyes wet, but strong. No, she said. They learned, and in the silence that followed, one truth burned brighter than any star. The battlefield was silent. No more weapons fired. No more ships vanished. The great war that had begun in terror and chaos ended, not with a roar, but with a breath, like the universe itself had been holding it, and finally let go. Wreckage floated. In the dark, twisted metal, shattered hulls, the broken bones of war. But among it, 3 black warships remained, unharmed, unmoved, watching the ISS Prometheus. Icarus and Titan hung like guardians in the void, their dark cores pulsing softly, like hearts after a long run. Inside the Prometheus, no one spoke. At first, Jax sat at his station, hands shaking, staring at the screen. They're gone, he whispered. The Vrax, they just left. Elias leaned back, eyes closed, breathing slow. They didn't leave, they retreated. There's a difference. Cora stood at the front, her reflection faint in the thick glass. She saw herself tired, scarred, real, not a legend, not a machine, just a woman who had refused to look away. She opened a channel, not to her fleet, not to Earth, to the entire galaxy. This is Admiral Cora Rostova of Earth Defense Command. The Vrax fleet has withdrawn. The immediate threat is over. All surviving vessels, return to formation. Begin rescue operations. Her voice was calm, not proud, not loud, but certain. And across the stars, ships turned. The Veil, the Krill, the Naveth, even those who had mocked, who had doubted, who had called humans primitive, now looked toward the 3 black warships with something new in their eyes. Respect. On the bridge of the Eternus Guardian, High Speaker Velen stood motionless. His crystal body, usually glowing with serene light, flickered with emotion. "They didn't just fight," he said, voice barely a whisper. "They outhawed the unthinking. They moved where movement isn't possible. They struck where no strike should land." Murtik, the Krill counselor, lowered all 8 arms. They didn't win with strength. They won with improvisation, with emotion, with chaos. He looked at the screen, at Korra's face. They turned weakness into weapon. Far below, on Earth, people gathered in cities, on rooftops, in quiet homes. They watched the live feed, not with fear, but with tears in their eyes. A child in New Shanghai held her mother's hand. "Did we win, Mama?" The woman smiled, tears falling. "Yes, and not just for us, for everyone." On Mars, in a colony built from dust and hope, an old veteran raised a glass to the ones who made us matter. Back in the frozen lab beneath Europa, the scientists who had built the dark core hugged each other, laughing, crying. They had not just made a weapon, they had made history. But on the Prometheus, Korra wasn't celebrating. She watched as rescue ships moved among the wreckage, pulling survivors from broken hulls, Veil, Krill, even a few Vrax escape pods, drifting like seeds in the wind. "Bring them in," she ordered. "All of them, friend or not. No one gets left behind." Jocks turned to her. "Even the enemy." Korra nodded. "Especially the enemy. Because we're not like them. We don't erase. We save." Elias stood beside her. "You know, they'll never see us the same again." She looked at him. "Good. Let them see us clearly for once, not as loud children, not as emotional fools, but as people who care enough to fight." Then a signal. Weak, broken, but there it came from the largest Vrax escape pod, a voice deep, slow, speaking in broken Galactic standard. "Why? Did you save us?" Korra took a breath, stepped to the calm. "Because we're human," she said. "And that means we don't stop helping, even when we should." A long silence. Then, one word. "Why?" She smiled, small, sad, full of truth. "Because once, someone should have saved us. No one did. So now, we do it for everyone." The line went quiet, but the pod didn't resist as it was pulled in. On the bridge, the crew stood in silence. No cheers, no music, just the soft hum of the ship, the glow of the stars, and the weight of what they had done. Elias looked at Korra. "Do you think they'll ever trust us?" She watched the rescue ships move like fireflies in the dark. "They don't have to trust us," she said. "They just have to know when the darkness comes again." The council met again, not in the cold light of judgment, but in the quiet glow of change. Orbital Eternus still spun above Zinther, its silver rings catching the light of distant suns. But something was different. The air was no longer filled with silent pride or hidden mockery. Now, there was weight, respect, even fear, not of war, but of having been wrong. The delegates sat in their places, the Veil glowing softly, the Krill still and watchful, the Naveth floating in their water spheres, eyes wide with wonder, and at the center of it all, the humans, not in the back, not waiting, not begging. They stood at the front. Admiral Korra Rustova wore no armor, no flashing lights, just her simple black uniform, clean and strong. Behind her, Jox and Elias stood silent, not as soldiers, but as witnesses. High Speaker Velen rose, his crystal form shimmering with something new, humility. People of Earth, he began, voice steady, but soft, we gather not to question, but to thank. A silence fell, deeper than space. For centuries, the Galactic Council believed peace came from order, from logic, from the removal of emotion, of chaos, of unpredictability. He looked around the chamber. We were wrong, Murdoch clicked. Slowly, a sound like rain on stone. You faced the Vrax, a force that erased stars, not with greater logic, but with imagination. You moved where movement is impossible. You fought with time, with gravity, with ideas. He turned to Cora. And you saved us. No one laughed. No one doubted. They just knew. Cora stepped forward. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. You didn't believe in us, she said. And that's okay, because we've been doubted before, on our own world, in our own history. They said we'd never fly, never reach the stars, never stand as equals. She paused, looked at each alien face. But humans don't listen to can't. We fall, we break, we cry, we fight with everything we have, not because we're perfect, but because we care too much to quit. A veiled delegate, usually silent, spoke. You risked everything to save species that mocked you. Cora smiled. That's what humans do. We don't help because it's easy. We help because it's right. Then, from the back of the chamber, a new voice. It was weak, mechanical, but clear. The Vrax prisoner, the one they had rescued, stood in a containment field, his dark, shadow-like form flickering. Why? He asked. You could have let us die. You could have erased us like we erased others. The room held its breath. Cora walked slowly toward him, until only the energy field separated them. Because once, she said, a long time ago, Earth was broken. We had wars, famine, darkness, and no one came to help. She looked him in the eyes. We don't want the galaxy to be like that. We want it to be better, even for those who don't deserve it, especially for them. The Vrax was silent for a long time. Then, softly, you are not like the others. No, Cora said, we're not. She turned back to the council. The Prometheus-class ships will remain on guard, not to rule, not to threaten, but to protect, because strength isn't for conquest. It's for shielding the weak. She looked out at the stars beyond the glass. We didn't build these warships to be feared. We built them so no one else would have to feel the fear we've known. A pause then. One by one, the delegates rose, not in salute, not in ceremony, in respect. Even Velen bowed his head. Even Murdoch lowered all his arms. And in that moment, something changed in the galaxy. Not laws, not weapons, understanding later. On the Prometheus, the crew stood on the observation deck, watching Earth's blue light in the distance. JAX grinned. We did it. They finally see us. Elias shook his head. No, they don't see us finally. They see us clearly. Cora stood at the window, a photo in her hand, her daughter, smiling in a field of red flowers. She whispered, we didn't do this for glory. We did it so you could grow up in a galaxy that believes in second chances. Then she looked up at the stars, at the endless dark, at the future, and she knew this was not the end, it was the beginning, because now, when the universe thinks of courage, it will think of them. When it thinks of hope, it will speak their name. When it thinks of what it means to be alive,